Hello and welcome back to my office. Not the cheeriest video that I've ever made, to be fair. We live in strange times, don't we? I must admit, obviously for me as an author, self-isolating isn't really too much of an issue. It's what I do every single year for most of the year. But I was starting to realise how much I, like everybody else, does depend on a circle of friends and being able to get out and meet with them or invite them round for drinks and food. It's a fairly important part of life. So I hope that you are getting through this with as much optimism as you possibly can. What we're doing is spending a lot more time playing cards, playing dice and gambling away our futures as a family. As what happened was that early on last week my daughter was told that university was likely to shut down. So when one of her friends in her house started developing a cough, my wife immediately haired up there, picked her up and brought her back home. That was last Sunday. Before she had managed to get there, the friend had already stopped coughing. It was a complete false alarm. But, you know, these things happen. My son, in the meantime, is working for his GCSEs, the early grades, and school is now cancelled, so we've no idea what's going to happen to his opportunities for getting on from here. So it is interesting. Now, I am always reminded of a book which I think was The Three Napoleons. Just going to adjust this because it's still flickering around as though it can't find my face to focus. That looks happier. The Three Napoleons, Sherlock Holmes story. And in that, one of the victims of the theft of a Napoleon was a reporter, a journalist, who mournfully told Sherlock Holmes and the police and everyone that for the first time in his life he was in the middle of a story and as a result he couldn't write a damn thing. I find myself in a similar position. I've got to write a short story before too long. Well, I think I'll do that, and that's going to be based on Beringer Fripper and the 100 Years' War, and it'll be set around his time at Calais at the arrival of the Black Death. That, in case you're interested, is a tractor going past. Never mind. So that story is quite convenient, but I can't get into it. I haven't been able to for 3 weeks since the blasted virus first appeared. So instead I'm writing a different story. I showed, I think I showed the Vintners some outlines in my William Hanna notebook of some A6 sheets of paper that referred to two elderly ladies. I'm going to be using them, but I'm going to be writing about them in the present day. I had been planning to write about them in the 60s or 70s. I may well come back to that theory, but just for now, I'm writing a short story that's based on the present day, and I'll probably put it up here so you can see it first. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be quite a fun one. I've got to write a new blackjack book. That'll be the next project, I think, because as soon as that's written, there's two big benefits. The first benefit is that I'll get paid for submitting the manuscript, and the second benefit is that we can then negotiate a new contract for the next two books. And these are important things because this is supposed to be an update on work, my office and the writing life and so on. The difficulty is that the only thing I've got to report right now is loss of income. I was going to be giving a week's lectures at Swanwick on how to write books in the summer. Well, that's not going to happen. I was going to be the Smithsonian Journeys expert for their classic English mysteries talks for a week again. That's been cancelled. I was going to give talks at Sudeley Castle. I was being involved in a literary festival at Skullduggery in Stowmarket and another little festival in East Grinstead, and I had a lot of things booked up this year, all of them cancelled. And that's a significant portion of income for an author. Now, the government has, thank goodness, made promises of income for people who are hard up for money. The only trouble is, it's for your employees. If you're an author and self-employed, then there's no protection. So it's going to be interesting times this year. We've been working through the budgets, my wife and I, and we think we can just about survive breaking even to the end of the year, so long as there's not rapid inflation with food prices or anything else. Watch this space, we can't tell yet. So that's all the negative stuff. The positive stuff is, I don't know anyone who's died or been significantly injured by this blasted virus. We know that a high proportion of all of the victims are in the southeast. Down here in the southwest, we suffer because we don't have as many ventilators, we don't have as many intensive care units, and we do have about the oldest population of the entire country, because an awful lot of people come down to the West Country to retire. So it's likely to be very difficult when the virus does explode, which is probably going to be in the next 10 days, I assume. But nobody really knows. It's going to be one of those things where it happens when it decides to happen. So, what else is happening? Well, there's no point sitting at home and festering and doing nothing. So I am determined I'm going to do more painting. I've failed so far this year, I know, I've been bloody useless, but I'm intending to do more in the way of sketches and painting, and I'll put them up as and when I get a chance to do it. I'm also investing certain amounts of time in using my homebrew skills. So I have now 5 gallons of a copy of King & Barnes Old Sussex Ale on the floor over there in a barrel, which I'm looking forward to trying out. It's looking most interesting right now, and in another week or two it should be about ready. So that's all good. I've also got a small still, which my wife's bought some vodka, I hope, at the supermarket, and I'm going to see if I can doubly distill that, and if I can, then it'll be really strong in alcohol, and then all I have to do is find some sort of medium, and I've got an antiseptic hand wash. Yes, I know. The trouble with that is I haven't really got the faintest idea what I can mix it with. I was thinking maybe I could use some gelatin, but that's probably not going to work. And the usual base that I think the hand wash antiseptic hand things have is some form of silicone, but I haven't got any of that. So I might look up on the internet and see if I can find any recipes for different media, because the trouble is if you put just neat alcohol on your hands, especially when it's 60-70% proof, it's just going to evaporate away immediately. So that's interesting. I've got a project there to keep me going, designing new hand wash. You never thought you'd hear an author say that, did you? What else? Well, really, it's just a case of trying to keep sane, battening down the hatches, and writing a lot. So I've got to write the Beringer story, I've got to write the 2 old ladies story, I've got to write the Blackjack story. I've got to walk these dogs for at least an hour a day. Ideally, I'm going to up that to 2 hours a day because I need the exercise, and so do they. It keeps them much happier if they've been well exercised. It's good also to note that the Dalmatian Spotty dog, who is now over 12 years old, developed arthritis in the coldest of the weather, but now the weather's getting a bit brighter, she's suddenly got a lot more perky, and she's bounding around and barking at the Ridgeback and forcing the Ridgeback to play. She's asleep over there right now. The Ridgeback, the Spotty dog's underneath my desk, which makes for very little leg room, but she's happy, so that's good. So, painting, walking, writing a lot more. I'm determined to do all of the videos every week that I do on YouTube, and I might up the quantity of them so that there's a little bit more entertaining, silly stuff for people, because I think right now people need entertaining and cheering up. So I'm going to be trying to do a bit of that. I will do a bit more of that on here as well, I hope. I've been planning, you may not have noticed, but I'm planning to have the Pilgrims have a blog go out in the first week of the month, then the vintners to have their blog go out the week after. You guys, Templars, are the week after that, and I'll do the Scavengers either at the same time as the Templars or a little bit, or the week after. It's really a case of trying to find time when my son is asleep. It's now nearly noon, he's still asleep. My wife's around, so she isn't going to bang on the door and say, "Oh, by the way, have you thought of?" And my daughter isn't here to say, "Do you want another cup of tea?" These interruptions are constant now. But hopefully that will be good for you. And if I stick to that routine of one a week, then it makes it easier for me to plan them out. It also means that I can then add, every now and again, additional little items. So I think I might be putting up book reviews for you, so that you can see the sort of things I'm reading and what it is that you might like to have a look at as well. If you like that idea, let me know. But that's currently what I'm planning to do. Now, I've been talking for a little over 10 minutes, and there's very little else to say, apart from thanks ever so much for your continued support, because you do make a huge difference, especially when at times like this, income is collapsing. Help. So I'm very grateful to you for that. Do please take the advice of your government, whether you're in the UK or the US. Social distancing is important if we're going to break the back of this blasted virus before it overwhelms our health services. Then we have to just isolate ourselves. It's horrible, but we have to do it. Think of ways in which you can get around it too. One thing that we've been considering is putting our chairs out in the street and asking neighbours to come round with their chairs and their bottles of drink and their own glasses. I'll light a log burner. Everyone can sit out around, pour their own drinks from their own glasses. No one touches anybody's other property, and we all keep 2 yards away from each other. That should be perfectly feasible, but at least it keeps our sanity because we can have a chat with each other. So think of things like that that you can possibly do for when we all get stir crazy. There's an alarming thought. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope to be able to put up the first review of a book next week sometime. I will be recording something else for Scavengers next week, and I hope that's of interest. Let me know if there's any points you want me to cover, any ideas that you've got for things you'd like to see here. The next planned thing is for the Templars to have a look around my office. I had been talking about doing this for a while. I had been hoping to tidy up the office somewhat. Yeah, well, that's gone by the by. But hopefully, if you're interested, you'll be able to see where I work, the sort of environment I've got, and you can wonder at the ability of anybody to achieve anything in such a god-awful mess. Yes. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep safe, and I'll look forward to seeing you before too long. Take care. Cheers.